Hello, my name is Fern G. Carr. My website is www.ferngzcarr.com, and I'd like to welcome you to my series, A Practical Guide for Emerging Poets. This is Part 3, Poetry Readings. At this time, in-person poetry readings are inaccessible due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Fortunately, thanks to digital means, the show can still go on. That said, having this extra time at home can allow you to learn more about all things poetic. I would therefore like to share some ideas with you about the in-person poetry reading process from start to finish. Then, when venues do open up, you'll have more information at your disposal. While there are many types of readings, including poetry slams, the focus of this presentation will be more traditional. Getting started. There are various approaches to poetry readings depending on your experience. It's also dependent on the number of readers. So for example, are you part of an open mic, intro, or basically a warm-up? Are you a member of a group of featured poets, or are you doing a solo reading? Another consideration is whether or not you've published a chapbook or a book. Because these are diverse situations, I'm going to try to take a general approach, and hopefully it will be of assistance to you. Preparing your presentation. The type of poetry reading you do, of course, will depend on your personality type. Some people are very spontaneous. Other people like to plan more. Some poets use a script with point form notes. But whatever you do, please never write out a script verbatim. It will sound stiff if it's read, and your audience will be ready to fall asleep. Another technique people who've written books use is they'll add post-it notes on the pages of their book that they would like to discuss and read poems from, and then they will ad-lib. I use a point form script to jog my memory. I'm always sure to include interesting anecdotes and backstories. I also try my very best to relate the reading to my particular audience. And if time allows, I usually will have a special segment geared to the audience. So for example, when I'm doing an out-of-town reading, I'll have poems about that particular region. Or if I'm doing a poetry reading to a group of professionals, I'll have poetry that relates to their particular profession. It's generally a good idea to bring extra poems with you in case you're given more time. This happens. For instance, due to last-minute circumstances, one time I was given an extra half an hour to read. Fortunately, though, I was prepared. Be sure to rehearse your reading. You don't want to sound rote or robotic, but you certainly don't want to be fumbling and not know what it is that you would like to say or read. Publicity. The best poetry reading still needs an audience. Being a solo performer in some respects is easier because it allows more flexibility. If there's a host, check to see how they're structuring the reading and what they will allow. Start posting on social media well in advance, and then continue to advertise with timed reminders closer to the performance date. Develop an email list to serve as your database of contacts, and before your reading, you should also make sure to contact these people and let them know about it. Sometimes hosts will make up posters, but if they haven't done that, check with them. Also double check with the venue to see if you're allowed to create your own. Some poets will bring items to distribute either on tables beforehand or in stacks for people to take home. You can also do things like making up postcards with your relevant information on it and distribute them for free at your reading. Bookmarks with your information that are professionally printed are great, but just keep in mind that they're not necessarily suitable for those people who prefer ebooks. If you are serious about networking, you should have business cards made up. In Canada, I use Vistaprint. Their URL is www.vistaprint.ca. The company is reputable, reliable, their products are excellent, and they often offer discounts. Extra touches. A free door prize is always a nice touch. Now, you may not want to do this for every single reading, but once in a while it is a lot of fun. Check first, though, to ensure that it is allowed and that no license is required. This is great for readings at seniors' residences. I find that the people there are very grateful. It does take some extra preparation, so you would have to bring with a numbered double ticket roll that has the same number on a ticket for the draw as the Keep This Coupon ticket that's given to each audience member. You'd like to have a clear ticket container so that people can actually physically see what's going on inside that container when you're making the draw. Of course, you need to have a nice prize, which should be advertised in advance. And it definitely is helpful to have people distributing a ticket to each person who enters the door, and also to ensure that every person in the audience has in fact received a ticket. If any immediate family members plan on attending your presentation, you should tell them in advance that they're excluded from participating in the draw. That maintains an atmosphere of fairness. As you can see from the image here, one of the prizes that I offered was a fancy box of chocolate truffles from France. And I also wrapped it up nicely and added some curled ribbon to make it look even more appealing. Once, when I did a reading for a poetry group, at the beginning of my presentation, I told them there would be a contest after I finished my reading. I brought paper and pens for everyone, but I didn't start the contest until after I finished. Then I told them I would give them 2 minutes to complete a task. They had to remember and write down as many of the titles of my poems that I read at that session that they could remember. Incorrect titles didn't count. They had to get the title exactly perfect. I also had a contingency plan in the event of a tie, but it was something very simple. It was along the lines of think of a number between 1 and 100, and the person closest to the number would win. And the winner received a few poetry journals, and they were very happy, especially since this was a dedicated poetry group. Now, if you've already written a chapbook or a book, of course you could have a draw for a free book. Enthusiasm for these contests and draws is fine, but don't go overboard and end up spending too much money either. To bring. It's a plus if a friend or family member can accompany you to your reading in order to take photos or videos of you. You can use these photos or videos as keepsakes, or you can use them for future advertising. If you're one of the featured readers, it's not a bad idea to bring an extra copy of your biography for your introduction. This saves hosts time and effort. Sometimes hosts get so preoccupied with last-minute details that they misplace their intros. I strongly recommend you bring a bottle of water, especially if you're going to be talking a lot. You want to stay hydrated. You can make a to-bring list, like the basic sample I've provided. Of course, you should tailor your list to the particular type of reading that you will be doing. Here is my sample list of items to bring to readings. As I mentioned, bottled water is very important. You might not think to bring a brush or comb, but you don't want to look unkempt. Tissues are sometimes necessary. You may need reading glasses, or if you wear contact lenses, you might need eye drops or even an extra set of lenses. Don't forget your presentation notes, an extra biography for the host, as I previously mentioned. If you've written a chapbook or you have a book that you're bringing with you to read from, don't forget to bring that book, and of course copies of those books to sell. When you're selling books, you'll need coins and bills for change. Since a lot of people don't carry cash, a square is a good idea for non-cash payments. Some people will require receipts. Business cards are great for networking. I also suggest that if you have any display items, you put them in or on acrylic stands. Again, when you're selling books, I like to bring some paper or notebook in order to record the names of my purchasers, and also pens for signing their books. The optional items I mentioned before are things like bringing postcards or bookmarks. In terms of people, a photographer, a videographer, a person to distribute tickets for a draw. If you're having a contest, don't forget the prize. You can bring pens and paper if it's that type of contest. And if it's a draw, you have to bring your prize, your numbered double ticket roll, and a clear container. Arrival at venue. Always arrive early. You never know what surprises might await you. Ask your host to request the audience mute their cell phones. Be sure to mute your own as well. Ensure that any equipment or tables are set up the way you'd like, and that's particularly important for microphone placement. Arriving early will give you time to set out items you may have brought for the audience, such as business cards and bookmarks. If you have chapbooks or books to sell, set up your display in advance of your reading. It's a good idea to purchase a square contactless chip reader. The URL for the Square website is www.squareup.com/ca/en. A square is fairly inexpensive and convenient. Many people don't carry cash. Doing your reading. The first thing I do is I ask the audience if they can hear me, especially if I have no microphone. And even then, if I do have a microphone, it doesn't always work very well. You'll find that the audience truly appreciates your concern. The next thing I do is I'm sure to acknowledge and thank my hosts and funders. Then I'm ready to get started. The key really is to keep your audience engaged. Be an actor and make it interesting. Try to create a relaxed and welcoming atmosphere. The goal is to have the audience become completely immersed in your presentation. You need to be comfortable as well. I suggest you wear comfortable clothing so that your movements aren't restricted, and you should also be wearing comfortable shoes. Whenever possible, I have a question and answer period after my reading. It further engages the audience and creates a bond. I hope that these tips will help to prepare you for successful poetry readings. Please remember that even though you thanked your host in person at the event, it's always a good idea to do a final follow-up. It's as simple as sending your host a thank you email or an e-card. That courtesy is always appreciated and may even get you invited back for another reading. Most importantly, enjoy yourself. The photo of Fern G. Carr is courtesy of Keith Levitt Photography. I would also like to thank Canadian Heritage, the Canada Council for the Arts, and the League of Canadian Poets for their support. Je voudrais remercier Patrimoine canadien, le Conseil des arts du Canada et la Ligue des poètes canadiens de leur soutien.